How is it possible to buy a property for up to 30% off? Well, over the past 16 years, I bought north of 5,000 properties for myself and for clients here in Australia. And we built a proven system to get insane discounts on the properties that we buy. So in this video, I'm gonna share exactly how we find these property deals and how we negotiate such insane prices on them.
I want to show you an amazing property that we picked up for a few of our buyer's agency clients. And I want to give you a quick rundown of exactly this particular property deal and how it was presented to the clients that bought this property, and a little bit about the data statistics, and why this property was such a phenomenal deal. And it literally made the clients that bought this property over $200,000 roughly on the way in. So let's jump into it. So basically, this is the first email. This is the preparation of the email that we originally sent out. So it was rare property in Sydney, Matraville for only $677. Bank vows and RP data say it's worth $1 million. Now, long story short, as it basically says in this email, this property is a block of units. And I was actually personally trying to buy this entire block of units myself. It was back like 2-3 months ago. And as per usual, if anyone knows my story, I buy a lot of properties at the same. I own over 150 properties, and I am a property fanatic. Basically, I couldn't get the finance for buying the entire block. And this block of units, it was 10 units in one, as you can see there. They're already individually strata titled, but they were going to sell them in one line. So basically, I decided to put one called a syndicate together, and I bought one of the units in this block. And there was 9 left, and then 9 buyer's agency clients jumped on the other 9. Now, this was a bulk deal transaction. So when you buy in bulk, just like going to Costco, a lot of the times you are able to get a better price. And individually, these were amazing deals. We had hundreds of people that wanted to buy, and a waiting list of clients that wanted to buy one of these properties. And I'll show you why. So again, the individual price broke down, ended up being $677,000. Now, clicking through the photos, you can see these are 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1 car. So kitchen, one of the bedrooms, another one of the bedrooms, decent size. And it's literally in Matraville on Bunurong Road, right across the road from Woolies, shops, schools, amenities, and you're around the corner to literally Maroubra Beach. So good location. Now, again, $677 is what we bought these properties for individually. Now, remember, the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Let's have a look at some comparable properties, comparable to the properties that we negotiated. Now, as you can see, $991, $875, and $800,000. Now, you can clearly see we got these for $677 a piece. If you look at the style of these units, these are on the same road, so they're comparable, but these ones are even older, right? If you look at these ones, these are about I'd say 70s, 80s build, these types of units, and they've only got 1 bathroom, so they're 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 car, and a lot of them don't even have garages, right? These would only have car spaces, whereas the other one has a security lock-up garage. And then on top of that, so let's say $875 roughly. You got $800, you got $875, you got $991. Let's go in the middle, $875. Again, we bought these property for $677,000. So the clients actually made $200K upon buying immediately. They didn't have to wait for capital growth it's going to get capital growth. And not only that, the rental income. So if you look at that, to hold this property roughly after council rates, water rates, management fees, and expenses, we're only about $60 roughly per week. I think once the rent goes up to about $800, it'll be only about $40, but that was prior to the interest rate cut that just happened. So basically about a 6% yield, which is great. And just literally $200,000 on the way in. Now, I have to say, what we also do here as part of our service is obviously we want to help people scale their portfolio and create wealth and abundance and make money through property investing in a very basic sense. We had our mortgage broker partners basically run valuations on these properties prior to actually purchase. So they did come in with the big 4 banks between $900,000 and $1.1 million in terms of valuations. So we were able to provide that basically and say, look, if you don't believe us, then go get your own broker to run a desktop val, and the average val was $950.
By the way, if you're interested in property investing, if you haven't already, you can click on the link in the description and you can download my free 2 best-selling books, 30 Properties Before 30 and How to Buy 10 Properties Fast. These books are in the bookstores. They cost about $40 each, but right now you can get it for free if you click on the link in the description and download these. Let me take you through the exact system of how I bought this property for only $677,000 each. Now, as you can see, this is the system side. We're going to go through more stuff later, but right now I want to talk about the purchase price. So I've just showed you previously a little bit about the property. The purchase price, $677,000. Now, let's say you put down a 10% deposit. Many clients actually put down 10% deposit for this particular purchase. And what that looks like is right here broken down. So right over here is the 10% deposit. As you can see right there, 67.7K is the 10% deposit. $25,000 underneath for that is stamp duty on what the stamp duty was for that particular property. $3,000 roughly in legal fees and, costs like that. You usually get a solicitor or a conveyancer to do it for $1,000, $2,000. Just say $3,000 for this scenario. $7,000 here for rough lender's mortgage insurance. Now, in some cases, you can get LMI to be popped on the loan or you can pay for it up front. In this scenario, I'm going to be even more conservative and just say we're going to pay for it up front and we're not going to pop it on the loan. Now, add all that up right there and you get 102.7. That's basically $100,000 to buy the property that we just went through for $677,000. Bear in mind, you can do as little as a 5% deposit on this property, but I wanted to be even more conservative and just say, let's say we'll do a 10%, which is a little bit easier to get from a bank nowadays. So someone's essentially put down $102,000. That was the purchase price minus the 10% deposit makes the loan amount that you get $609,000 right there. So as you can see, $609,300. Now, as I mentioned in the video, basically we had mortgage brokers go through and order valuations on the properties there in that block. And they all came in between $950 roughly to $1.1 million. We could have went with the bank and got the valuation of 1.1. But in this scenario, I'm just using the valuation that came in at just over $1 million. Came in $1,014,000, and that was one of the major 4 banks. And literally right now, I am refinancing. I know they came in that price, and I'm literally using that valuation as we speak right now in this video to refinance and do this scenario. So I want to basically take you through exactly what is happening with my own scenario and with clients that have actually bought this deal themselves. We basically had mortgage broker order 4 different valuations with different banks, $950,000, $1,014,000, $1,080,000, 1.1. And let's just say we went with the $1,014,000, which I personally gone because with the other bank, as an example, that valued at 1.1 million, my serviceability is tapped out personally with that bank. So I could only go with the bank my borrowing capacity wasn't personally tapped out in, and the valuation on that was $1,014,000. So still a phenomenal result. What basically you need to do in this scenario, yes, we've got the new valuation of $1,014,000. Now we need to work out what is 80%, because I'm only going to take this up to 80% LVR. I'm going to write that down just so you don't remember. So 80% LVR. Now, if you don't know what LVR means, it stands for loan to value ratio. I've done other videos that you can check out. It will explain why that's so critically important to understand when you are investing in property. But basically, the new value, the brokers told us, is $1,014,000. Now, you basically just use a calculator. I'm going to give you the easy way to do it as well. So $1,014,000, and I do times 0.8. Because if you times 0.8, then basically it gives you 80% of $1,014,000. And that works out to be $811,200, right? That is what can be the new loan amount for this property. Because the new valuation is $1,014,000, 80% is $811,200 or $811K. And then what we need to do, take the new loan and then you minus the old loan of $609. So this is how you work out the amount of equity you'll be able to take out. It's not what the new value is minus what you paid for it, or the new value minus the old loan amount, and then you can take out. It's not how it works. You've got to work out 80% of the new value, which we've done that, which is 811, and then take the 811 minus the old loan of 609, and we've essentially worked out now that the cash out is right here, as you can see, $201,900. In essence, what we have done is we took a deposit based off 10%. We took our capital of $102,000. We bought a property. We've refinanced the property up at the new value. We bought it, look a good 30% at a discounted rate. Refinanced it, literally the property itself settled a week ago, and I'm starting the refinance process right now. So I'll get my cash out probably in the next 2 weeks. So essentially, we bought a property. We keep the property. We keep the rental income of the property. The property keeps going up in value. We get tax deductions on the property. We get the compound growth of that property over the years because we've used only 100K, but we've bought an asset worth $1 million. So we basically 10x'd our asset value, went from 100 to $1 million. And the crazy thing is, then we put in 102 and we get out basically 202,000 in cash back in our account. So I've doubled my money. I've got 100% return on my money, and I've got an asset worth $1 million, and my capital that I put in 100 grand, I haven't just got that back, which if you get that back, within a month or 2 months or 3 months, then that is phenomenal. But in this scenario, if you do it really, really well, you can actually double your upfront capital. You can double your upfront cash, and you can turn 102,000 into 202,000 and keep the property. It's insane. No one in Australia has a better formula than this. People will often ask, well, why would someone sell below what it's worth? And I probably covered that a little bit earlier, but I want to take you through some examples of why and how. Why you're able to get properties that are at a discount and how you're able to do that. So the why and how. First thing, to cover the question, how are you able to get a property below what it's worth? The first thing, it could be a bank repossessed property. You can get deals often that are, at a discounted price because it has been bank repossessed. I'm not going to go into the full story. There's always multiple levels of reasons why you're able to get a property at a discount. There's people out there that believe you cannot buy a property cheap or you cannot buy a property at a good deal, but I'm living proof you can. And if you ask any agent who's been in the game 5, 10, 20 years, they'll tell you, oh, that property was a steal. Like that property was, there's properties out there where they should have sold for more, but they didn't for various reasons. That's one. Could be a bank repo. Number two, could be an off-market property. Now, just because it's an off-market property doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be at a discounted price. You can buy a property off-market and you can still pay too much for it. But often what happens, if you have really good connections, you build up your database of sales agents and people that are regularly selling property, and you build up your profile like I have over the years, then you can get access to a lot of off-market stock. We get access to hundreds of properties every single month that are not on mainstream platforms like realestate.com.au and Domain and all these other things where everyone has access to them. And the reason why that can be really, really good is because that when a property goes online, property is in essence a supply and demand game. And the more demand that a property has, usually the higher the price will inflate and be pushed up, especially in auctions and properties that are on market. However, if you've got off-market properties, then that property does not have exposure to the entire market in itself. It might not have 100 people looking at it. It might only have 1 or 2 people looking at it. And then you've got to ask yourself, what does that do to the price? It allows you often to be able to get it at a better price than if it was on the market and if 100 people had access to it and they would be fighting over it and push the price up. So off-market can assist with getting amazing discounts, but there's a lot to it, and I'm going to take you through the step-by-step in a second of exactly what you need to do to be able to put yourself in the best position to make cash on the way in to buying property, and basically how to get rich through property. The third one here is access issues. I've covered this before, but a very basic explanation of access issues. I bought properties before where there's a tenant in the property, and when a property is tenanted, often it is hard to get access to the property because under different state laws, the real estate agent, whoever's selling the property, has to give them, sometimes 48 hours, 2-3 days an advance notice that they're going to take prospective buyers through that property. Now, if the property was vacant, on the other hand, that agent could technically do an open home every twice a week, and they could go there, unlock, and basically just stick this, have the flag waving out the front and take hundreds of people through. And the more access, similar to supply and demand, the more, offers will come in, and the higher the price will basically be able to be pushed up. So there's always a reason behind that. But access, that's just one example of access issues. Sellers direct. I bought countless properties from sellers directly. I've had sellers see me on TV, see me in the media, and basically didn't want to pay $20,000, $30,000 in selling fees to a selling agent. And they've literally just emailed me or called me up directly and basically said, hey, I've got this property here. I want to sell it. Can you help? And I say, well, what do you want for it? And then basically they just, sometimes they don't even know what the property is worth themselves, because every property has a range of value, low, medium, high, just on average. It's why all those platforms a lot of the times have low, medium, high. It's because that every property has a range of value. And even when you go to a bank can value a property at 20 to 30% variance from other banks. So buying properties direct from sellers, I've done it before. Can the average person do it? Can a person do it that's just starting out? Probably pretty unlikely, because they don't have the necessary experience. No one knows who they are, and they don't know what they're actually looking for, and they don't know anything or basically how to do any of this stuff, which hopefully at the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding than what you do. Lease issues. I bought properties again. I've covered this in other videos, but lease issue is a prime example where I bought properties and a lot of other investors have been turned off because the lease was for the next 18 months and the property was rented $300 less than what it should be. So other investors saw that and said, $300 times 18 months, that's over $20,000 in rental income, which I'm not going to get because it's under rented, because maybe, and you might be asking, well, why the hell would someone do that? And there's plenty of reasons why, but in that scenario, it was the person who originally owned it rented it out to a relative that it was actually rented to them, that they allowed to live there for a discounted price. Where other people saw issues with that and, oh man, I'm going to have to wait for 18 months before I can increase the rent to where it should be, and I'm going to lose $20,000. I was able to use that as a negotiating tool to be able to knock off between $100,000 to $150,000 off the actual value of that property, and then buy it below what the bank had already valued it at. So I checked with the broker. They say it's worth $650, and I'm able to buy it at, $570 as an example, or $100,000 under what it's worth roughly. Just different examples. The last two, I'm going to go through quickly. Poor marketing. I've covered this in another video, and I hope you've watched the other video before, but poor marketing can have all the difference in a property selling for the most premium price. Poor marketing, maybe on real estate or domain, could be poor copywriting about the actual property. A funny one about poor marketing is you can often see that on real estate and domain, when the agent lists it online, it could be a house, but they list it as a unit. It could be a unit block, but they list it as a house. So you might be scrolling through houses and then find a unit in there and be like, well, how did this not get filtered under units and it's filtered under a house when it's not a house? You find those discrepancies, those, glitches in the system, and they're just incorrect data. So the data can be skewed and the data is wrong a lot of the time. So poor marketing is a big one. Inexperienced real estate agents. First of all, every real estate agent can quote or do a comparable market analysis very differently from one another. One might say a property is worth $1 million, one might say they can sell it for 1.2, and one might say 950. They each got different levels of experience based on various factors, such as how many properties they sell on a month-to-month basis, what area they are most common and fluent in. If an agent is very predominant in this area, but then they get a listing in an external area, then they don't know what's happening often on the ground. That can have a massive impact on what they actually list that property online for sale. That's part of the reason where you can see guides in different areas on real estate or domain being the guide is 1 million, but then it sells for 2 million, sells for double the asking price guide. That's a little bit about how and why you're able to get properties below what they are worth and use that information to be able to kick ass in property investing and make money literally from day one and buy properties at a discounted price. All right, so this is the exciting part. Right now, I'm gonna take you through step by step exactly what I would recommend that everyone out there do to be able to learn and put these processes in place so that you're able to buy properties at a discounted price and make more money through real estate than you ever have before. Step one, what I want to talk about today is learning CMA. CMA stands for comparable market analysis. And basically, it is one of the most important aspects of being a property investor. And what I mean by that, and to elaborate on it, doing a comparable market analysis is basically where if you are analyzing a property deal, whatever type of property it is, maybe this property is online, you found a property on real estate and domain, or you found a property that's off market. The first step that you need to learn is how to analyze and do a comparable market analysis, which basically means comparing that property and what the proposed projected purchase price is of that. So let's say you get a property from an agent. The agent says, well, this is a property, here's the address, this is what the seller wants for it, $1 million. Then what do? Well, then you've got to do a comparable market analysis. First things first, jump on your phone, if you don't have RP data and all these other subscription things, if you're just starting out, not that you necessarily need them. The first thing I would go on is realestate.com.au. That's my favorite app out of either real estate or domain. Basically, jump in the exact same suburb. So if we're talking about a suburb in Parramatta in New South Wales, and it's a house, then you want to basically step by step filter. It's a house. We look at other houses in Parramatta in the suburb. And then we obviously look at the house and how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how many car garages or car spaces. Then the next thing is the square meter size of the land and the actual square meter size of the property. There is many things, and I wish I could write it down, but I'm running out of space on the whiteboard. Bedrooms, bathrooms, external size, and of course, the property quality itself. Roughly when the property was built, you can't compare a property from 1970 than the one that was built 5 years ago. The quality of the fixtures, the fittings, the internals, the floors, the build quality itself, whether it's fibro, whether it's, veneer, whether it's double brick, concrete, whatever. You got to look at these differentiating factors, which it gets a lot more difficult with certain types of properties, such as houses, probably one of the hardest ones to price because there's too many differentiating factors, such as what I just said. Other properties, such as villas, townhouses, units, especially ones that are in the same block or comparable build structures, are a lot easier because you've often got mirrored floor plans. Of course, there's another level to it that if you're in a building and you're on the first floor versus the third floor or various other things. But I'm not going to jump into that right now. But basically, you've got to compare apples to apples, or you've got to try your best because you'll have a bunch of different other fruit out there like oranges and bananas and all that other stuff. And people will be thinking that this is a comparable property. But learning comparable market analysis, real estate agents do this in their courses. Starting to get their real estate license, doing a comparable market analysis is part of it. However, nothing beats old-fashioned, on-the-job training and experience. You're probably going to realize how many things there is to learn. Now, if you're one of the person that your eyes are starting to roll over with already, me explaining you've got to learn one thing and I haven't even got through the other things yet. If you're already one of the people and be like, I don't have time to do that. I've got kids, I've got husband, I've got wife, I've got work, we both work. If you're one of those people that this already seems too difficult, then you need to get someone to help you. You need to get someone very, very experienced who's done this. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's my team, but you have to make sure they actually are walking the talk and they actually do it themselves. Because in Australia, there is hundreds, if not thousands, of property experts and buyers agents and spruikers and all this stuff, and they might only have 2 properties or 3 properties or 5 properties or maybe 10 properties themselves. To me, with the risk of sounding arrogant, I would always follow the person who had the greater results. And in essence, I would say if I was starting out again and I was picking one person to follow that had 15 properties, another person to follow that 150 properties, I would obviously say 150 is better than 15. $100+ million portfolio in value, which is my personal portfolio, is worth well over $100 million, is better evidence than someone's only got a $20 million portfolio. And further to that, if someone is able to get buy 10 properties, I see a good way of looking at things is, what if I only achieve 10% of what they have achieved? Because they are so more dedicated than I am. What if they dedicate more time, they started earlier, they pick better properties, they've got better knowledge, they've got better analyzing skills, whatever it is. But if someone even gets 10% of the results that I've got, and I've got 150 properties, well, then it means they're going to get to at least 15 properties, which is pretty cool. But if you're following someone out there that is a property expert or out there in Australia and they've only got 10 properties, how many properties you're going to have if you only get 10% of what they have? Then you're only going to get one property. And anyone can get one property. So if you are one of those people that you think it's too hard, then you need to get someone to help you. And if you want help, then again, you can contact myself, my team, a link in the description. Or if you're still in the learning phase, then jump in the description again, get either of these books, and you can literally download these for free. These are best-selling books. This one right here, best property investment book in all of Australia. If you want to learn this and be able to do it yourself, and you think, I've got the time, I can do this, I'm ready to dedicate the next 5 to 10 years to learn everything there is to know about it. I'm willing to go without the sleep. I'm willing to, do whatever it takes and to sacrifice, keep watching. Step 2, find a mortgage broker that has done somewhat of this strategy themselves. You can go out there, you can interview mortgage brokers, you can ask them the question, how many properties do they have? Or how many clients do they have that have over 5 to 10 properties? Ask them the question, see what they say. If you're using a broker who's a family friend or a random broker that only owns one property themselves, they're probably not going to understand all this. They're probably going to say, this is impossible to do. They're going to say, it can't be done. But yet, I've just shown you a real life example with the address and with the evidence. So you tell me that, find a broker. Tip to that, if you need help with this one here, finding a broker, literally jump in the description or jump on our website, dilleenproperty.com, contact us, and we will put you in touch with a mortgage broker that we use, that I personally use myself, my team use to build their own portfolio, and clients use to build their own portfolio also. And those brokers have in their own portfolio between 10 to 20 plus investment properties that they personally own themselves. So I'm giving you the answers here. I'm telling you what to do. I'm giving you the answers if you want them. And part of step 2, to rewind, you've got the property for, let's say it's hypothetically, let's say 600,000. You believe it's worth 700,000 or more. Email them the address before you sign a contract on the property and say, hey, I'm about to buy this property, 123 Smith Street. Can you order a few desktop valuations or electronic valuations on the property with the major banks, and let me know what they come back with. A mortgage broker can usually do this within 30 minutes. I've had it done on the phone and it's been done within 5 minutes. So that's where you've got to locate the right broker that'll do that. Now, not every broker is going to want to often waste their time with hundreds of people just running vals. So yes, you might need to smooth them over. You might need to say, hey, I'm willing to pay you $1,000 extra if you help me get this deal across the line. Because if a broker is experienced as you want them to be, and they have 10 to 20 properties, then if you're out there and you're going to be annoying them all the time, saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Broker, can you order this one? Oh, forget about that one. I lost that one. Actually, order a val on this one. Or no, this one. No, this one. And you do it 20 to 30 to 40, 50 times, they're going to be like, bro, you're wasting my time. Piss off. So you don't want to waste people's time either. You've got to put yourself in their shoes and you've got to respect people's time. So learn the CMA, locate the broker, build a relationship with the broker, get them to order a val on the property. Now we're going to due diligence. If the property itself is not on real estate or domain and maybe it's another state and you can't find it, then one of the things that I would ask or request from the sales agent would be a routine inspection report. And a routine inspection report is basically where the current property manager has gone out there, and they usually do this between 3 to 4 times a year, and they took photos and they've done a report of the condition of the property internally. So you can basically see inside of the property additional photos that you wouldn't normally be able to see if you didn't ask for a routine inspection report. So this is a very, very good tip. That will give you more information in terms of the quality of the state of the property. They often list previous maintenance and repairs that have been done or maybe need to be done. But that's point 1, and I'm going to try to blitz through this as quick as possible. Then the next one is defects. When you get a property, and often you're going to get a pest and a building inspection, you need to actually be able to understand and quantify and learn what is a actual bad defect and what is a normal defect. And this is a very, very complicated scenario. Again, I've negotiated tens of thousands of properties and I've bought probably over 5,000 properties in my time for myself and for clients. But the difference of looking at a pest and building report for the first time or the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times usually can scare people. And people can look at something and they think it's a big deal when it's not a big deal. They can look at a hairline, crack in a gyprock wall, and they automatically think the building's falling apart. They can look at small leaks or stains on the ceiling and think there's a massive leak and the whole thing's going to cave down. So learning defects, the easiest way to learn about this is through trial and error. Unfortunately, looking at pest and building reports, a top tip, and this is just off the top of my head, you could literally ask the people that you know have bought properties that have actually completed a pest and building report and ask them to send you one. If you want to see an example of a pest and building report, jump in the description, contact my team and say, hey, can you send me an example of a pest and building report? Because as you look through pest and building reports, you'll be able to find out what are common issues that properties are normally having between the ages of X to Z, as an example. Because a property that is from the 1980s or 1970s or 2000s or 5 years old or 10 years old, they're all going to have different types of small defects. It could be cracks, it could be rising damp, it could be previous termite issues, could be mold, the list goes on. And part of doing an analysis on the property itself is actually understanding and being able to analyze how much something would cost by using just standard logic. But often common sense isn't often common. And I've seen myself, and I've done it myself, and I've seen other clients, people, they've turned down a property that over something where there might have been defects where it may have only cost $5,000 to fix that small defect. Could be a small thing, or maybe $10,000. But then you've got to put your investment hat on. Say, if this property, if I've got the deal closed at $600, the broker's ordered a val's come in at $730,000, is $5,000 okay to spend on this? And in that case, yes, it would be, because if I'm going to make $130,000 less $5K in repairs, I'm still making $125,000 of profit. Analyzing the deal itself and looking at defects and understanding what they are and how bad they can be and what the whole process would be to fix that defect, or does it even need to be fixed? But you need to understand that properties that you're buying existing, they're gonna have issues, whether they're big ones or small ones, or like every property, there's no perfect property. Just like there's no perfect person, there's always a downside to every property, and that's normal. The next thing, rental appraisal. You need to learn how to conduct a rental appraisal. And that is very similar to doing a comparable market analysis of a property value. You need to learn how to do it on the rental appraisal amount. Because often, in my experience, I have found that a property online or a property that is currently rented is 95% of the time it is under rented for what it should be rented for. Agent or the seller says it's rented at the moment for $500 per week for the next 6 months. The lease expires here. You need to do your own analysis on that rent. Again, take out your phone. This information is free. You can find it for free. Learning, however, is not free. That takes time, energy, and effort. And your time is worth money. Jump online, try to basically analyze if this is a house or townhouse or whatever property you're buying, filter what are the ones that are online for rent. And if you can clearly see that there is a lot of other properties that are renting for $650 a week in that market that are pretty similar, maybe call up a real estate agent or 2 or property manager. Or maybe simply ask for a rental appraisal from 2 or 3 property managers. But then again, I wouldn't always trust other people. I would want to learn how to do it yourself. But if you see that other ones, and you might be able to get $600 a week, and that would change the deal analysis itself, because now you say, oh, it can rent out for $600, not $500. So the proposed return on investment is now much higher. So rental appraisal, you need to learn how to do your own rental analysis. So we've done, routine inspections, defects, rental appraisals. The next thing is property issues. Property issues, very similar to, defects, but property issues can be a wide range of things. I've written down a few things here. Property issues could be, there may be an easement on that property. If you don't know what an easement is, I've explained in other videos. There may be caveats or covenants on that property itself. There might be something affecting the property. It could be 1,000 different things. Property could be in a flood zone. It could be in a bushfire zone. It could be in something that impacts the value of that property negatively. It might be harder to get finance on it because the property might be literally right near a massive power line. And some banks view those properties that are near power lines and other things as higher risk for certain reasons. I'm not going to go into the whole spill of it. But if you Google it, many answers will come up. I'm not going to say the right ones, but there's a lot of different examples of why. So does the property have any issues itself or surrounding issues that is affecting it, which could impede on the value of that said property? Too many to list. I've only put a few, 3 or 4 down there, as you can see. But that's not. The last thing is a cash flow analysis. Now, we have a free cash flow sheet which we can send you. If you are interested, again, contact the team in the description, email us and say, please send me the cash flow analysis spreadsheet. It has all amazing formulas and is really, really cool, and you can enter in everything. But you need to learn how to conduct a property cash flow analysis to be able to figure out how much this property is going to be either costing you every single month or giving you every single month. And just like many other examples that I've shown, everyone out there, it is okay for a property to be costing you a little bit in cash flow per month or per year. If it's negative, let's say $50 per week, pre-tax after all expenses, then that might only be negative $2,500 per year. You're going to get the better and the benefit of the capital growth, which the property might grow $50,000 in value or $100,000 in value, but it's only costing $2,500 a year to hold. And that money is basically for savings. It's better to put it in the property and own an asset worth $1 million. This scenario here, you probably would have saw previously earlier in this video that this property, by memory, it might have been negative $70 or $80 per week. So it might be negative $3,000 per year in the interim. However, the cash flow increases as the rent increases with inflation, and the rates have just got cut anyway. So they're going to come down, and this property will be positive or neutral. But right now, it is negative in terms of cash flow. But the most important thing is we've turned 100 grand into 300,000 because we bought a property for 677 when the value was over $1 million. And then we've cashed out the equity and we've turned 100K upfront cash into 200,000. We've doubled our money, our cash upfront return. We've tripled it, but obviously the other money is in the property as collateral to keep the loan. So this is the most exciting strategy. And I can guarantee you in Australia, the way that I invest is better than everyone else's. And I encourage you to learn as much as you can, to go through these steps, be dedicated to learning these skills, because property is the best way to wealth creation and basically just get rich in Australia. I'm living proof of that. So now you understand how to find the right property deal. But obviously the deposit for the property that we spoke about was over $100,000. And that's a pretty big chunk of cash that not everyone can afford. So if you want to get into property, but you don't quite have that amount, or you've got a smaller budget, check out this video next where I talk you through 5 ways you can invest in property with barely any money down here in Australia.